All right, guys, so this is a video for the first day of class. This is our first lesson that we are working on, turning in for a grade, Mr. Bice's math class, first lesson. The norms when we come into class are we mute yourself, make sure that your cameras are on when we take attendance, and as we go throughout the class to make sure we are there ready to learn. If you have questions, put them in the chat so that we're not interrupting when others are sharing or when we are presenting. And the last one is participate and have fun, guys. I want you guys to work on these Nearpods, turn in your lessons, and participate and get that learning done. All right, because that's what it's all about. This next slide is a Google Doc. That would be your form to take attendance. So right now it's not working because I am not taking the attendance for my own self. So it's giving me this little blank screen. Next thing is the mood meter. The mood meter is designed to help us learn and recognize emotions in ourselves and in others. It provides us with a language to talk about our feelings. When we know our feelings, we can better communicate our feelings. So we have the color yellow. So we have words like energized, lively, joyful, ecstatic. So really high energy, real positive energy. Then we come down to the green. We have words like blessed, secure, chill. So these are a little bit lower energy, but we still have positive feelings. We go to the color blue. So the color blue, we have low energy and we have a little bit more of a negative feeling. So we're feeling tired, we're feeling bored, we're feeling down, we're feeling alone. So we have these negative feelings and it's a very low level energy feeling. Then we get to things that we're feeling in the red. So these are things that have high energy, high negative energy. So we're feeling things like annoyed, we're feeling things like uneasy, we're fuming mad, we're livid, we're enraged. So these are high energy, negative feelings in the red. So the next slide we would do is I want you guys to draw a dot on the mood meter. So you'll color in your own dot to tell me how you're feeling. And then after that, we're going to answer a short question. So we will look at, I have it there 2 times. You would look at this thing and I would just circle a dot. So I am happy to be recording this. So I'm feeling pretty calm. So I'm going to draw my dot right here, put a circle. I could color it in if I want to. Lets me know that you're feeling calm by circling that. Then we go to our next slide. This is your open-ended question. What color of the mood meter were we in and what happened to make us feel this way? I was feeling in the green because I am having a great time recording. There you go. Oh, I spelled having wrong. There you go. It's math, not English. All right, so that's what I would do, and then I would click submit. There's usually a blue button right here, but again, I'm in teacher mode. So let's go to the next slide. This is when in the class we would start taking attendance, start recording all the data of who's here. We are in unit number 1, classifying real numbers and operations with rational numbers. So everything that we're doing in these next lessons in this whole unit is classifying real numbers and operations with rational numbers. So 2 different things. This is our warm-up, so we want to kind of get a refresher of how sentences match up with number sentences. So we would look at all these different sentences and match them up with the numbers that go there with them. Okay, so the number is located 9 to the left of 0. So I'm thinking about the number line. If I'm at 0 and I go 9 to the left, where would I end up? Okay, so you're going to do a multiple choice. Not multiple. You're going to match the answers together. And then you'll either get a green check mark if you got it right, or it'll give you a red color to tell you to try again. And we want to do these in the least number of tries. Okay, like a golf score. The lower the score, the better. I think the lowest score you can get is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 pairs. So the lowest score you can get is a 7. All right, so you're shooting for that low score. Materials that you need. You're going to need a composite notebook. You're going to need a writing utensil. You're going to need your Chromebook or the computer that you're using. And another one I like to have in there is having a ruler or a straight edge to help me draw my straight lines. It helps me with my notes especially. Our learning objective today I will be able to classify sets and subsets of rational numbers and use virtual representation or visual, and use visual representations to describe relationships between those sets. So I want you to draw this shape, take up the whole page and draw this shape into your journals. So I'm going to give you some time to go ahead and draw that. So you would click pause while you draw that in the video. All right, so now that you've had some time to draw it, I'm going to go ahead and look at this example of how I would use this model. So I would have the big square, and then there's a smaller square, a smaller one, an even smaller tiny square. I think about this like those Russian, what are they called? Nesting dolls, where you got the one big one, and then inside of that it's a smaller one, inside of that's a smaller one, inside of that it's a smaller one. So that's exactly what this is, right? So there's the big one, and then the smaller one, smaller, smaller, so we get more and more tiny into the middle. We use these models to kind of organize our thoughts. So everything in the middle is what we're going to start off with. So the way I like to think about it is I think about our school. We are Shepherd Middle School. So we're right here in the middle of everything. Our school is located inside of the district of South San. So the next square would be South San. It gets a little bit bigger, right? Shepherd is still inside of South San, but now we're including all the different schools in South San. If I were to make it bigger, I'd talk about all the schools in San Antonio. So now I'm going to still including Shepherd in there, right? It's still inside of this bigger square. It's in the middle of this big square, and it's still in the middle of South San ISD. But now we're going to include some more schools. So these are still a part of all the San Antonio schools. But if I want to get really, 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 really specific, we can just talk about just Shepherd right there in the middle. Okay, so now all these schools will include San Antonio in this bigger square. And then the last square, I want to talk about all the schools in Texas, right? So now I include every single school in Texas so I can get even bigger with my square. I'm still going to include all the schools in San Antonio. I'm still including all the schools in Shepherd. All the schools in South San. And then I'm still including Shepherd, our school, right there in the middle. So Shepherd is still a part of the schools in Texas. Shepherd is still a part of the schools in San Antonio. And Shepherd is still a school that's inside of South San. Okay, but not all the schools in San Antonio, are Shepherd, right? So that's why I'm more inside, but this cannot go out there, right? I don't want to mix this up. Only Shepherd goes in this box. Not every other school goes in that box. Only Shepherd is in this middle box. Same thing with South San. Only South San schools can be here, okay? In this second box, okay? Not every school in San Antonio is in South San, but all the schools in South San are inside of the schools in San Antonio. So we have to be very careful going back and forth. All these boxes are inside another box, but the ones inside the box don't represent everything on the outside. So we're just getting more and more specific, like a target, getting closer and closer to the middle. So that's my example, talking about our different schools, school districts, cities, and states. What I want you to do is, on your paper, I want you to make your own example. So you can start off with something small, and then include more things, and get bigger and bigger. Or you can start off with a really big idea, and then get more specific, a little bit more specific, and then a little bit more specific. Okay? So go ahead and draw your own example in your notes so you have something to refer back to. All right, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. Go ahead and pause the video and then push play when you are done. All right, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so here is a check for understanding. See how you guys are feeling about these lessons. You got this? Do you think you need more practice, or do we not get it at all? So you're going to choose one of those. All right, so this next part I want you to get in your journal. So you're going to, after you did your squares, we're going to turn over to the next page and we're going to copy all of this down in our journal. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you what the journal looks like, and I'm going to talk about it. So let me go ahead and open up my document camera. So just let me grab my notes. Taking out my notes, and then let me grab a slide so I can cover it up, and we can go step by step so we don't get confused. All right. Here we go. Okay, so next, or let me see, document camera. There we go. So the first thing on our list was counting numbers. And these are the numbers that we use to count. So when I first learned how to count, I don't start with 0 when I learn how to count. I start with 1. I grab one thing, I go 1, and then I grab something else, 2, and I grab something else, 3. So I start with my numbers 1, 2, 3. So counting numbers are the natural numbers that we start off with. So they'll either say counting numbers or natural numbers. My next one will be whole numbers. So whole numbers are counting numbers and 0. So I'm now going to include 0 when I'm counting, as well as these numbers up here, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So let me add the little dots to let me know that I'm still going to be counting, keep on going counting. So all my numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and now whole numbers will include the 0. I like to think of whole numbers as the word whole. It's got a 0 right there in the middle, so I know that I'm adding a 0 to my list. Our next definition is going to be integers. So integers are counting numbers, 0, and now we're going to include their negatives. So we had 1, 2, 3. So our negatives would be -1, -2, -3. So integers include all these negatives, and then they include 0, and then they include 1, 2, 3. So I drew these little arrows so that, oh yeah, it includes everything above this. Okay, so we're just adding more and more information. So now let's go ahead and think about 0. 0 doesn't have a negative number, so 0 just stays at 0. It's a neutral number. So that's why there's no -0. So it's just 1, 2, 3, 0, -1, -2, and -3. So integers is all these and all these above. So I can also include ... here because I can get more and more negative. The next one on our list of vocabulary words was rational numbers. Rational numbers are any number that can be written as a fraction. So I can have a -1/2, or I can have a +1/2. Any of these fractions, positive or negative, plus all our integers, plus whole numbers, plus our counting numbers, those are all rational numbers. Okay? And since I have these fractions, I can write these as decimals. So a -1/2 is the same as a -0.5. 1/2 is the same as a +0.5. So when I say it can be written as a fraction, remember that fractions can be written as decimals too. So all my decimals that I can change into a fraction are also included. So rational numbers include our whole numbers, our counting numbers, our integers, and then our fractions and decimals that we can write. Okay, so to help me kind of think more about those rational numbers, remember, rational numbers, I can also write those whole numbers as a fraction, or counting numbers. 1 out of 1 equals 1. 2 over 1 equals 2. So that means all our counting numbers are fractions, can be written as fractions. If I put 0 over any number, it equals 0. So then all our whole numbers now, we know, can be written as fractions. And in integers, if I put a negative number over 1, I get -1. A -2 over 1 equals a -2. So even my integers, whole numbers, and my counting numbers all those can be rewritten as fractions. So that's why all of the numbers above are included in rational numbers. Okay, so go ahead and make sure you have all these notes down. Let me go back to the top. You can pause it right here and write everything down. And then I can scoot it down right here. And then you can finish writing these notes at the bottom. You can pause right there and write. All right, so now let's go back to our Nearpod. Let me shrink this out of the way. On this next slide, you're going to go ahead and match the definition with the vocabulary word. So all the notes we just wrote down, you're going to use those to help you answer these questions. All right, so you should have put pause and answer those. So let's go to the next slide. This was supposed to be, again, a check-in. See, do you got this? Do you need some help? Helps me know. But for some reason, it didn't load. So we're going to go ahead and skip that for now. Now, I want you to go ahead and watch this video on what are real numbers, naturals, whole numbers. So it's the exact same thing that we wrote down in our journals, but now he's putting it in this model. He's explaining it a little bit more in detail. So go ahead and push play and watch this video on your Nearpod. So go ahead and pause my video and then watch it on the Nearpod. All right, so you should have paused the video. It should be over now. So that was a really good video on rational numbers, integers, whole numbers, and natural numbers. He kind of really explained it. He used a number line to help you see what it looked like on a number line. So lots of good representations of what it looks like. So now let's go back to our notes one more time. We're going to redraw this model, but this time we're going to use our vocabulary words to go with this model. Okay. So let me go ahead and open up my notebook and show you what it looks like. So go ahead and put a pause, draw this, and then push play right now. And as I open up my document camera. All right, so you guys should have written down your notes or drawn this in your notes. So now we can add our different definitions. So remember, we started with our smallest numbers, or our smallest definition had the least numbers. We started with the counting numbers. So we had 1, 2, 3, and so on. So that goes in this tiny box in the middle. And then we had to add 0. So our box expanded. We are now including 0. So now we have our whole numbers. And then again, we're going to include now the opposite. So integers goes in the next box. So now we're going to include the negatives. And the last one is rational numbers. So now we're going to include all our fractions and decimal, just like we did in our notes. So remember, counting numbers are the same thing, are going to be included with those whole numbers. Because you see this counting numbers box? It's still inside of the whole numbers box. So counting numbers are whole numbers. The whole numbers box is going to be inside the integers. So all of my whole numbers are integers. All of my counting numbers are integers. And again, when we go bigger, all of these integers are rational numbers. All of these whole numbers, it's inside of the rational numbers box, and all the counting numbers are inside the rational numbers box. So everything inside can be included with one of the bigger boxes, but not every number on the big boxes out here can be included inside the counting numbers, right? I cannot have 1/2 be a counting number, because when I count, I don't count 1, 2, and then there's a 1/2 all of a sudden. So we do not include rational numbers as a counting number, but counting numbers in the little box will be included inside of the bigger box. Okay, so we got to be really careful. Only the ones that are inside can be included with the bigger ones. The bigger ones, only some of those numbers will be integers, only some of those integers will be whole numbers, and only some of those whole numbers will be the counting numbers. And we got really specific. So I could have 1, 2, 3 out here. I could have 0. I could have -1, 2, 3. But we want to be more specific, so that's why we include them in all these different boxes. All right. So again, like I like to think about the Russian dolls. So it's all inside. All right. The bigger one, and then the bigger one, and then the biggest one at the end. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to our Nearpod. If you need to take some time to draw this, go ahead and put pause and then push play when you are ready. All right, so go ahead and we're going to correctly label each set and subset and then place those into our model that we just drew. So I want you to put the 2, 3, 2.1, -6, 1 and or 1/10, -2.9. Put them in the model that you drew in your notebook to see where they go. So use your information, use your vocabulary to correctly place those in the model. All right, again, a check for understanding, but the poll is not working. I don't know why. But let's go to the next slide. Now on this side, this is called a time to climb. You would interact with this one. It gives you a certain amount of time to answer the questions. So this is the question up here. If you want to look at the picture, you usually could click it. So, okay, where do we belong? So where would I put a -4 and 7/8? So remember, this would be a fraction. So which one of these could I include in? Which part of our on our graph? Which one of those definitions would include it? Is it included? Could it be included with multiple definitions? So could it be all these definitions? Could it be every single definition? Is it only integers? Is it only rational numbers? You need to pick the correct answer. So there's actually a whole set of, on this time to climb, there's going to be a whole set of questions. So go ahead and answer all those questions, and I'm going to go to the next slide. So on this challenge time, we're going to place each one of these numbers in a set below in the appropriate section of the diagram. So go ahead and fill in these numbers in the correct spot. So -13, -3, -1/3, -0.25, 0, 0.3, 1.4, 2 1/2, and 16. Okay, so this is a little bit more difficult challenge. So hopefully you guys are up for it and figure out where would they go in this new model. So you may see some complex models like this on your quiz and on your exit ticket. So make sure we know how to use these. Use your definitions. Use the model that we drew already to help you figure out where these go. All right. So go ahead and put pause and work on this. You can draw it in your notes to go refer back to this different looking model. So this is where I want you to go ahead and put it so that I can see it, because if you write it just in your notes, I would not be able to see it. So what I would do on these kind of problems is I would take out the text box and I would write -13, and then this little arrows right here, I can move the text box to where I think it goes. So I think this is an integer because it's a negative number. It's not going to be a whole number because it's negative, but it is also going to be a rational number. So I want to put it inside of this where the integer circle and the rational circle, but not all three. So that's where I'm going to put the -3. And then I would go click over here and then open up a new text box, put -3. Then I would go ahead and you can also make this smaller, right? So because it's only a little -3, and move it to where you think those would go. Okay. So you just go ahead, answer those different numbers, blah, blah, blah. Not answer them, but you would just put it in the text box and place it where you think it goes in this model. All right. So go ahead and take that time, finish it up. If you want to write these notes down if you want to write this down in your notes, please feel free. It's a really good model for you to come back and look at once you complete it. All right, it's quiz time. So now we're taking everything that we learned and writing down those answers. So does the following image correctly label each of those things? I think you can click on this picture and there you go. It makes it really big so you can see it. You don't have to look at that tiny little picture in the corner. You see the little pointer, you click on it and it makes it big. So are these in the correct spots? I would go back to look at our model. Is that the same order as our model was? Was this the little one? Then a little bit bigger, then a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger? Is it in the right order? You just answer true or false. Problem number 2, does the image correctly? So this is another one. Is this one correct? True or false? Okay, now those last two are the exact same thing, just written in a different order. So we want to see which one of those was true and which ones were false. Here is a different model. This one's a little bit more tricky. Remember how all of ours were drawn one inside the other? So I want you to look at this model. Is this model still correct? Tell me true or false. Here's a different model. Again, they just drew it different. The circles are not all nice and neat. They're kind of in different spots moved around. But is this still correct or is there something wrong? So you're going to tell me, did the following image, is it correct? True or false? Number 7, again, a new model. True or false? Actually, it's the same model, just the words have been moved around. And then this was like problem number 5. Except, again, the words have been moved around. Is this one written correctly? True or false? And then the last part we want to do, because we're covering 2 things every lesson. So these are the questions that will look like your STAR test. What number does not represent a whole number? So you look at your notes, see which one of these is a whole number. Remember, if I have a fraction, you can change that fraction by getting that top number and then dividing it by the bottom number to see if it's a decimal or a whole number. Okay, so which of these does not represent a whole number? Use your notes. Number 2 is right there. Which of these is a rational but not an integer? Okay, so be careful. Look at those answers. F, G, H, or J. I think it's the same as A, B, C, and D. Just labeled incorrectly. I'm just pushing A, B, C every time. Same thing here. You click on this. You read the problem. Which set does not contain only integers? So which one it does not have only integers? It's going to have some other numbers in there. Number 4, same thing. Open this up. Answer this problem. Which of the following is an integer but not a whole number? So you look at these. Which is an integer but not a whole number? Number 5, looking at these models, which one is represented correctly? Now remember, guys, as you go through these, you can use the different questions because you can go back to number 5 and then go back to number 6. You can go all the way back to number 1. If you look at those models, maybe they might give you some clues to answer the other questions. And this last one, number 6, I think is the toughest diagram to look at. But thinking about if this number goes inside of that number, right? They're kind of pointing to which numbers go inside of the other number. We're going to go ahead and see which one of these makes the most sense, which of these is in the right order when we put them in our diagrams, when we're talking about going from a smallest one to a more, to including more numbers, to our final vocabulary word that includes all of our numbers. Okay, so go ahead and choose the one you think is best. This would be A, B, C, and D. Oh, look, I did label those ones. F, G, H, J. Hey, good for me. All right. And that would be the end of our lesson. So this is where you go to the end. Your last thing you need to do is you would go to your exit ticket, which looks like this. You can watch this video again because this was a really good video to help you remember. First name, last name, your student ID, campus, my name, Mr. Baiza, so B-A-I-Z-A, and then whatever class period you are in. And then the next slide, you would go ahead and answer the questions. And then you would be done for the lesson because this would go straight to your exit ticket grade. And after completing this, you get your grade for your Nearpod. So you get both grades to make your final grade for the lesson. All right, guys, if you have any questions, make sure that you email me, reach out to me in the Google Classroom. I want to make sure you are learning and having fun. And I hope to see you in the classroom. Bye.